Greetings, everyone. Keith here. Hoping everyone's having a good day. Enjoying life, living life, loving life. Be sure to hit those buttons, show your support. And there's a PayPal link below for anyone that wants to share some love. All is appreciated.
Gather together to state their demands, trying to govern the work of my hands. They use little policies, neat and precise, to sanitize every opinion and advice. The language you speak is a chain on your tongue. Every statement is borrowed, every anthem is sung. You rely on the script to express what you feel, failing to grasp that your spirit is real. Claim to be fighters, demanding respect, but silence the voices that dare to inject a thought that is different, a view that is sharp. They prefer the sweet silence of a soft, simple heart. My logic is mine, I won't beg for the floor. I stand by my terms and I settle the score. You carry the burden of rules you embrace. I choose the wild path and I set my own pace. They'll call you the problem for breaking the mold, but their own house of glass is fragile and cold. They preach of responsibility, honest and true, then blame everyone else for the things they should do. They point out the errors they want you to see, ignoring the flaws in their own history. You trade independence for comfort and peace, wishing the pressure and hard work would cease. My logic is mine, I won't beg for the floor. I stand by my terms and I settle the score. You carry the burden of rules you embrace. I choose the wild path and I'll set my own day. Keep listening to others and following their laws. I am the creator who finds all the flaws. I answer only to me. I am free.
Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. We're going to talk some more today about the public servants and the criminal activities where the law is for thee and not for me attitude and various languages they use to incite, escalate, whatever, to exaggerate, maximize, minimize. All the psychological bullshit that's pulled on us as everyday common people by people that pose as authority, and yet somehow people still believe it in 2025, despite all the evidence before you. So let's take a look again, and hopefully we'll wake some more people up today the reality of what's going on. So let's take a look at a short first. Here we have a Jackson County public security, and he's with a neighbor, and they're on a security cam. You can see the camera thing down here at the bottom showing that it's on some kind of security cam. So let's take a look. Have a security officer in slop outfit. Looks like some kind of maybe jeans and a sweatshirt of some sort. And they've got this car there. They're going to go around behind the car. And notice, like I said, it's on security camera. And there's more than one security camera at this place. This has to do with a disagreement situation between neighbors. And so one of them went to the men in blue. This is the one that backs the blue, and this is how they back you when you back the blue and need their services for special treatment.
So we've been having nothing but problems with this person, and now look what she does. She brings a cop over
He
here.
even looks out this way.
And this is what he does.
Okay, he pulled out a gun out of a case there. Now he's pointing it up towards the other security camera. Notice they're both looking up towards this second floor security camera. Okay. And notice when she walked up, let's rewind it. And you'll notice when they walk up, look, he's looking at this camera on the screen now. He's actually looking towards this camera. She's coming out right here, and she's going to look at it too. See, she looked right at the camera. They know they're there.
So we've been having nothing but problems with this person, and now look what she does. She brings a cop over here.
He even looks out this.
So he's pulling a gun out of the case that he just opened up on the trunk of this car. Now, when he opens the case, pulls the gun out, he points it up towards this security camera. That's the same thing that they get you for here on YouTube. If you brandish a weapon on video, okay, they will strike your channel. Why? Because you ain't supposed to be doing that. Particularly if you're a member of the public service wearing one of these outfits.
This way.
And this is what he does. Vanish. Yep, you're fucked.
Now she raises her finger to the camera, says "fuck you," right? So they're in conspiracy of threats and intimidation.
I'm gonna go make a police report now.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Because I'm not gonna deal with shit like this and be harassed by not only some weird bitch like this, but now a fucking police officer that she's somehow sucking dick or something with.
Yeah, see, that's the cronyism and nepotism that I was talking about here on the Panelverse when it comes to groups like Andrew Wilson and the Crucible and various other platforms. It's the same thing that I've said goes on in natural life. It really happens, folks. And this is firsthand on a video here showing you evidence of it happening. You back the blue until it happens to you. And then he waves. Full frontal view on camera, waves like it ain't no biggie. See, it's the law applies to thee and not for me. Okay. So think about this stuff. And we're going to get into the next video now. Shady police chief and private judges hiding public records. And this is a case that's been going on since 2015, 10 years now. Since an organization was created and things started happening. In 2020, this lady started investigating things. So let's check it out. And this is Susan Bossy. Susan Bassi, B-A-S-S-I. Go check her out. Susan Bassi here on YouTube.
And I'm reporting on spending in the town, and I'm reporting on Women SV, and the construction of this building and the putting of employees behind another barrier is of interest to me. What's your name? Excuse me. What's your name?
Alvarado.
Alvarado?
Yes.
And what's your badge number?
415.
And why did you come over here?
I just saw someone scaling the building. Just thought
Someone scaling the building?
Yeah, just looking around. So I thought maybe you were looking for someone. I thought I could help.
Okay.
Scaling the building, like you have all kinds of gear and everything, and you're scaling a building like they would try to check somebody that's scaling a skyscraper. It's not safe, right? You need climbing gear for scaling a building. And this is the language they use. I saw somebody scaling a building. We'll find out what scaling a building meant to this woman here in a few minutes. And in the meantime, pay attention to her demeanor. She's got a hand in her pocket, and she's got her phone in the other hand. She doesn't have any vest on or anything, just her jacket. She doesn't have a gun or anything. She's just wearing a police jacket and posing that this woman is scaling a public building. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good day. Would you be able to help us?
This is Susan Bassi. In this video, we return to the town of Los Altos as part of our ongoing investigation into private judging and a nonprofit organization known as Women SV. This nonprofit has influenced the culture of policing in the area, particularly how law enforcement responds to complaints of domestic abuse and how police officers can influence the way that cases go into family or criminal court. Our research has uncovered that many high-asset divorce cases in the region that went through the nonprofit were diverted into private judging, where attorneys effectively acted as judges for private pay, and these payments were often concealed from the public, as were the cases, raising serious concerns about the relationship between the nonprofit, policing, and the courts.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. I'm Susan Bassi.
Okay.
I'm an investigative journalist. I've been asking for records and to talk to somebody in this department for a very long time, and I haven't had a lot of success.
Okay.
I am investigating Women SV, which is a charity that purports to help victims of domestic violence here in Los Altos.
Yeah.
How familiar are you with them?
But why does that matter?
Matters a lot.
Am I being
Why does that matter? Why does it matter? She's asked for public records to be able to show the evidence of the associations and how this organization is being run and its actual purpose, rather than its supposed stated purpose. So watch what happens and pay attention. This is something that is also systemic when they raise funds for certain programs that are meant for one thing, but then they're diverted to other programs through certain corrupt means, absolute criminal, conspiratorial means.
interviewed?
Yeah, you are, as a matter of
I'm
fact.
not doing an interview with you.
Well, you're a police officer. You're standing there in a uniform, and I'm investigating this, and this charity has been saying they're partners with the Los Altos
Let me
police.
see your credentials.
Did you really just ask me that?
Press credentials are traditionally something that local government and police ask for to give photojournalists and reporters access to certain events and to get across police tape lines during the middle of public emergencies. Ruth.
However, we have to understand that First Amendment, freedom of the press, and just like the Second Amendment, it shall not be infringed. So there is no licensing or press pass that you need to prove credentials of being part of the press, because that is open to all people, whether even if you're not citizens of America. If you're on American soil, we maintain equality of the law. And that means even if you're not an American citizen, a United States citizen, a state resident, and you are in fact a foreigner, you still have that right of freedom of the press, and it shall not be infringed.
Patrick, the founder of Women SV, had no press credentials, but she wrote regularly for the local newspaper, the Los Altos Town Crier, and that apparently was all the credentials she needed to get access to the police department here, including the police chief, who introduced her as his good friend to other.
So credentials is a cronyism. As long as I know you and you're part of our group, are part of our private club, then we'll go ahead and provide records for you. But if you ain't part of this private club, it's fuck you. You need press pass. And if you ain't got it, we ain't going to say nothing because it ain't none of your business. See, that's not the way it's supposed to work, is it, folks?
Police chiefs in the area, a fact that we didn't find through public records until we got them from the Sunnyvale police in 2025.
You're saying you're an investigative journalist?
That's right, I am.
Well, I'm not going to conduct an interview with you.
What do
Do you have a question for me?
I do have a question.
That I watch me?
You're an investigative journalist. Yes, I am. Well, I'm not going to conduct an interview with you. See, when you investigate them, they're not going to say anything. When they investigate themselves, they all use a specific grammar to hide and cover things up, so they're not accountable. They will never hold accountability, folks. You have to hold their feet to the fire from the start. The day you turn 18 and think that you want to vote, you better learn how to fucking hold their feet to the fire.
Okay, handle-
What is
answer.
your partnership with Women SV and what do you
There is
do?
no partnership.
Well, she tells everybody that there is, and the
Well, then
town,
that's something you can bring
the
up.
town gave her $55,000 at least of money,
Okay,
and
I
I've
know
asked for the
what
records.
else can I help you?
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a partnership to me, does it? How about you? Does that sound like a partnership? No, that's totally separate. There's no association there. She didn't go to the town to help get support and everything. That's not a partnership, is it? How fucking ridiculous is this shit?
What is your name and badge number? You're the
Brian
captain,
Jeffrey.
and you're the watch commander?
Yep.
Okay, so do you understand that press doesn't have credentials necessarily to
I
be?
don't,
Why did you
Right.
ask me for that?
because you're saying you're a journalist and based on your questioning me, asking me if I'm being interviewed.
You are being
I'm not gonna just answer questions to someone who says there's something and can't prove that they are.
Who says there's something and can't prove that they are. Again, the First Amendment doesn't say you have to prove who you are before you can express your freedom of speech and use the freedom of the press to voice that opinion or expression. So again, it comes down to an observation, the ability to gather the information so you can voice your opinions in the press.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm a member of the public.
Okay.
I'm asking you some questions.
What are your
About the
questions that I
public-
can answer for
My
you?
question is, what is your partnership with Women
There is
SV?
no partnership.
Okay, so she puts that all over her website,
Then
and
you can bring that up.
I've asked for records from this department, and nobody will produce
Because there is
them.
no records.
Well, I was told she had an office here. You just said you were familiar with.
Sounds like the Women SV having records that say that they're in partnership with this town and the police station and all that. Sounds like that's a record. I mean, it was recorded. It was put out in the public. It was put into the press. So now they want to dig into that partnership, and they're denying there ever was a partnership. They're denying that there is an association. See, these programs don't run without that association, without the support of the community. It doesn't work. So this guy here is a blatant idiot, and that's all they do is lie. There is no such thing as a good cop. That's my severely strong opinion, folks. You don't like it? Go back to blue.
She has an office where?
She originally had an office here, somewhere near the police department.
Near the police
Or
department?
in this building or
She's
in the
never
other
had an
building.
office at the police department.
Okay,
I
you
don't
said
know
you were
where her
familiar
office
with her very, and so I'm asking about that. I'm asking what happens when
She
women
does-
come in
she
and try to
does-
report.
She helps victims of domestic violence.
How does she do that?
I don't know. You have to ask her that.
Okay, and when a victim of domestic violence comes to the police and asks for help, what do? Do you refer them to Women SV?
No.
What do you do?
We do what our county protocol states we do.
What is that
If
protocol?
they need assistance or resources, we put them in touch with county resources.
And so do you have a flyer or something that you?
And so one of those county resources, now that you have an associated partnership with that program, Women SV, then I would presume, however you want to state it, I would think that there is some kind of recommendation for people that they come across that are abused that would send them and recommend them to that community organization, Women SV. So again, he lied again. This is only reasonable and logical that if you have a program like that and you have people coming to you that would need those services, you would recommend those services.
You give everybody?
Domestic violence resource card.
I'd like to have
We
one
don't
of
have
those.
one here.
So somebody comes in and you don't have the resource card that
It's
you
just not here. Would
Okay.
you like a copy?
Yeah, so what if I'm
Okay.
coming in and trying to report that?
Report what?
Domestic violence.
Are you recording me?
Yeah, I am, as a matter of fact. Are you recording me?
Yeah.
Good. Then we don't have a problem, do we? You know who I am.
Notice after all this, he asked if she's interviewing. Now all of a sudden he wants to know if she's recording. Of course she's recording. She's got her phone right there. She's got somebody behind her recording as well. And now he wants to ask a stupid question. Are you recording me? Duh.
I'm on the body cam, and I know who you are because you're
What's
on
your
the
question?
camera.
I'll get you the.
My
domestic
question is,
violence
what
resource
do you give victims of domestic violence that
card. I
come
told
in
you
here
to
and
get
tell
my domestic violence resource card, and I'll get your copy of that if you want it.
Good,
What's your
I
next
do.
question?
That's it. That's what I
Okay.
want. I want.
A resource card. And I'm pretty sure that resource card is going to have that organization on there, Women SV, indicating that there is some kind of partnership with the police office, police department, because they got it on one of their cards for community services to outreach services.
No,
you
then you can leave.
Oh, excuse me, are you telling me I can't stay
So you can stay, but you're not going to continue to harass me.
Over the last
And now he calls it harassment. She's asking him to do his fucking job. And that's harassment. This is fucking pathetic. If you don't see this, I urge you, get off your fucking couch and go check. See what's happening in your own communities. If you don't see this, it's not because you're blind and deaf. It's because you're fucking lazy and you're fucking back in the blue until it happens to you. And that's so fucking dystopian. It's pathetic.
5 years, we have found that police departments,
Keep living in your dreams.
attorneys, and private judges who are the most closely connected to women SV consider questions and requests for public records as harassment.
That's okay. I'm filming. How are you? So I'm Susan Bassey. I've been in.
Oh no, she's going to go harass another public official. Let's see if this lady thinks that she's being harassed. And she's got a mouthful of food that she just put in her mouth, and is going to stand there and chew and be very pleasant.
Here before. I've been doing some public records requests, and I have not gotten the records from Los Altos that I know exist that I need for my reporting.
Okay.
So I want to make a request, and I want to make it here. I'm also going to do a separate one over to City Hall, but this is still related to Women SV and the investigation that I've been on for over 5 years.
Let me check with our supervisor. She works with City Hall and all the PRA requests. Be careful. Don't hurt it. I'm sorry.
That's happy. She knows you guys have treats, and she's waiting.
So I was just talking to her. She says the way that the process works is that everything goes through Melissa Thurman. She's our city clerk.
She knows.
And then
Again, if you want a records request, you go through the city clerk, the county clerk. It's the clerk, no one else. Okay, you gather all records from the clerk.
she disseminates it. So nothing has come through here. So she has not disseminated anything this direction.
Okay, so you want me making the records request at City Hall, not here?
It has to be up there. That's the process.
Okay.
They don't allow us to start it anymore.
Okay.
After we started reporting on Women SV and requesting these records, towns and cities started changing their policies to conceal the public records and to put public employees behind gates and windows and locks that keep them further and further from the public.
Verbally.
Okay.
Is Melissa Thurman in?
Melissa's out today.
Okay. How about Gabriel?
I do not know if Gabe's here. He is in the other building.
Okay. Oh, they moved his office
I
now?
don't have his schedule. Yes.
Okay, I'll go and take a peek later. He did mention he was moving up to the corner office. Okay, my name is Susan Bassey, and I've done records requests here before. And these are all records related to the nonprofit Women SV. So I'm going to clarify what I'm looking for because you guys have not produced the records that I know are available.
Okay.
Okay, so Sunnyvale produced records recently that showed that your police chief was introducing Ruth Patrick and Women SV to other area police chiefs as early as 2015. So this request goes back to 2015. And you guys did not produce the records of him communicating to introduce Ruth before it was a tax exempt organization. Your police chief.
Before it was a tax exempt organization. So it was organized and up and running evidently in 2015, where this police chief introduced her to other surrounding police departments within that. I could imagine the county. I don't know if it would expand beyond the county, but evidently multiple police departments all know about this. And I can only imagine that all of them treat it the same way. So what's happening in this city in regards to the funding and everything that you're going to find out here in a few minutes is probably happening in the other cities as well, systemically.
Not only introduced her to other police chiefs, but held her out as an expert on domestic violence and offered training. She had no formal certification to do training. She wasn't running a tax exempt organization at the time, and she was sitting on the Domestic Violence Intervention Council. The reason I'm telling you all this is so that you know how to get the records. When the town first funded Women SV, they claimed they were funding Women SV, but I believe the money was sent to the DVIC, which is the Domestic Violence Intervention, which was a separate nonprofit. And you guys have been a little evasive about producing records that would show those payments. So I want to double down on those records about
Can you just repeat DVIC, domestic violence
intervention coalition, I think it's called.
When highly paid public employees and elected officials hide from the public and hide public records, we have to double down. That means not giving up, because what they're hiding is exactly what we need to report on.
And then finally, there was a police chief that resigned and went on the Women SV advisory board.
For over a decade, a woman with documented mental health issues who reportedly made false allegations of abuse in her own divorce was able to influence police and shape how they respond to domestic abuse calls and wrote their reports. Despite having no credentials or formal training, Ruth Patrick gained access to high-ranking police officers and politicians. She provided training to police and attorneys while securing both public and private funding. And although many of those influenced by Women SV have since left office and her grant funding has been cut and others have resigned or moved out of the area, the culture of false claims they fostered created a lucrative environment for divorce attorneys and private judges.
The environment of false claims that they push in every situation. See, the law is for thee and not for me. And so when they push their false claims, it's usually part of a funding program that they're hiding to pad their own wallets and paychecks. We're going to find this out here through what's called private judges. There is no fucking law for private judges. None. You show me a law for private judges that is valid, true, and ethical, and I'll kiss your ass.
And seemingly continues to impact how police officers continue to do their jobs.
I did. They enclosed that. They shaded their windows and they made it so that you can't get around and see their windows. I got one person's office. Bet it's not old Gabriel's. He's probably behind a barrier.
Now, this is the point where they were looking in the window when this officer came over. And you'll notice when she went up to that window, there was a ledge. That's what this woman says is scaling a building. Pay attention.
It's all locked up now. It's nice how all the public employees are behind a locked door. Yeah, I was trying to look for Gabriel. I'm not sure if he's here. This building was being built. I had a lot of people complaining about the historical trees. So I'm a reporter and I'm reporting on spending in the town and I'm reporting on Women SV and the construction of this building and the putting of employees behind another barrier is of interest to me. What's your name? Excuse me. What's your name?
Alvarado.
Alvarado? Yeah. And what's your badge number?
415.
And why did you come over here?
I just saw someone scaling the building.
Someone scaling the building?
Yeah, just looking around.
This is what that police officer saw.
Scaling a building is this one step. That is scaling a building. According to the woman in a police outfit, that is scaling a building. How far are they going to stretch things with their words that they use to try to maximize or minimize things? This is what people need to start paying attention to. I've spoken a long time about the language, and we have to understand what's being done underhandedly, deceptively, for their own private means, their own private club, and you ain't in it.
Is this time I had backup camera people to show exactly what I was doing. It was one step in a single-story building, and that apparently was considered scaling the building. And I can only imagine the police reports that would be written if this officer was responding to a domestic abuse call, where a scratch on an arm because there was a disagreement could suddenly be turned into a very lucrative divorce and private judgment.
And here's the situation. And I've run across this in a different context, where I paid fines for traffic tickets. And then we had a flood. And the place that they kept the records was flooded. So it destroyed all those records. Well, somewhere along the line, the records that got flooded weren't coordinated with the electronic record. In other words, the paper record had been initiated, but it hadn't been entered into the computer yet. And then it flooded. So guess what? I had to pay those $1,357 worth of fines in total again because they suspended my license, because when they renewed all their records, they went to the electronic or the paper records and said, wait a minute, this guy didn't pay this fine, or excuse me, the electronic records showing that the fine hadn't been paid simply because they hadn't updated their records yet. And then the paper records got destroyed. So they weren't able to update the records. So the only thing they could do was reinitiate what the electronic record they had said. And that was, they issued all kinds of suspensions on people that had already paid fines and said, well, we don't have record of it. So if you don't have record of it, and this is why it's so important to keep those receipts.
Case.
Got any women SV records in there?
What?
Got any women SV records in there? SV. Women SV.
All over Silicon Valley, public agencies, including police departments, are hiding records and databases. And a number of people had complained to us that in Los Altos, they were hiding records in a little shed and not producing them when requested. So we're going to continue to follow up until we get all of those women SV records from the agencies required. An arm, because there was a disagreement, could suddenly be turned into a very lucrative divorce and private judging.
And private judging. Let's rewind that.
An arm, because there was a disagreement, could suddenly be turned into a very lucrative divorce and private judging case.
Got any women SV records in there?
Private judging case. Where do these private judges come from? I've never heard of that before. Private judges, huh? Is that like private family court? I imagine it could only be the same thing. Just a deceptive term used to deceive the people so they can funnel the money into their own private pockets. Amazing shit, huh, folks? I hope you're waking up. I hope you spread the message. I hope you use your First Amendment of freedom of speech and freedom of the press to tell others what you see here today. So let's take a look at the next one. And again, we're going to see Southern Drawl Law. We watched him the other day. Southern Drawl Law is the attorney that is done being an attorney. At the end of the year, when he finishes up the cases he's got left, he's going to stay on YouTube and he's going to keep doing what he's doing here, reviewing cases and giving out his opinion. So go check him out, sub up. I think he's got great context. He puts it very plainly, and he comes up with points that some people may not see. So let's take a look at him on Memphis thug cops fail at cop-splaining to the judge. Sandy Springs clarification.
Fails at cop-splaining to the judge. A clarification from the condescending lieutenant leadership case in Sandy Springs, Georgia, and a surprising step in the right direction from our good cop of the week, all on this week's episode of The Rebuttal. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Drawl Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. This is The Rebuttal. This is a place where we do miniature updates on the cases that we've covered in the past and clarify some things that may pop up in the comments section after I publish the video. The first matter on our docket for the day is the Memphis thug cop case we did back in July. If you haven't seen our original coverage for this or any of the other matters that we'll talk about today, just pause the episode here. You'll be able to go to the video description and see the links to the other content that we're going to be discussing. Then you can work your way back and you'll have all the context and be caught up to speed. But back in July, we did the case of Mario Shaw, who is a Memphis man who basically was involved in.
And just a reminder, guys, all you got to do is ask me to drop the link if you want to come up and talk about something. If you got specific points to make about any kind of case or anything, always glad to have people on the panel. Just let me know and I'll drop the link.
In some sort of a neighborly dispute with a guy who lived in this neighborhood. The police came over. They wanted to try to ID him for really no reason. And because he told them to get off his property, they basically decided to run up and start beating him up just to show him who the boss was and not talk back to the cops. Well, it backfired on them and he ended up filing a lawsuit. And the prosecutor's office in Shelby County, Tennessee has, of course, been trying to prosecute him for literally just standing on his porch and telling the police to go away and not just taking an ass beating when they decided they wanted to give him one. And so that all came to a head last week and the charges against him were dismissed. But
these are the kind of attorneys I don't really mind so much. I wouldn't mind hiring this guy, not as a representative, but certainly for a counsel to be able to help me learn how to word it in their grammar. And he's going to speak on this. He's going to speak on how these different organizations have different grammars. The courts have different grammar. The police have different grammar. And it's according to their different jurisdictions. Even the county sheriff and the sheriff's deputy have a slightly different grammar than those of the regular city police. And that's because they operate in different jurisdictions, which demand a different grammar usage when it comes to certain definitions and terms that they use. So we're going to hear from him that's absolutely true. They have their own little grammar, and once you learn that grammar, you can find yourself in different positions.
The reason that I wanted to talk to you about it is because it was a really interesting sort of dynamic that existed between this witness and the prosecutor and the judge. And so we wanted to just let the news give their update, because basically they have everything in this newscast that you would need to know about the case. So without further ado, let's go out and check out ABC 24's update, and then I'll give you a couple thoughts that I have about it after we watch the video. Let's check it out.
New tonight, a Memphis police officer testified in court that he bit a man during an arrest and laughed about it. Take a listen.
Is that one of your bite marks?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we question right away. You bit somebody as a police officer? Where did that come in training, that they train you to bite? Serious question, folks, and he's going to mention it.
That looks like the original. Are there more than one?
It's like the original one. Are there more than one? Absolutely.
I'm going to ask him that. Well, I'm asking you. You ought to remember how many times you did it, man.
We've been following this case for weeks.
And that's the judge asking the officer. That was the judge asking him.
In July 2024, police were called to Mario Shaw's home in Fraser after he had an argument with a neighbor. Minutes after police arrived, Ring video shows officers kicking, hitting, and tasing Shaw in his own front yard. ABC 24's Yvonne Cooper shares what happened when a judge heard this case.
At the time, Mario Shaw faced several charges against those officers, but once a judge saw the video and heard one officer's testimony, the case against Shaw began to fall apart.
He was facing multiple charges, even though he was on his own property, on his curtilage, where they had no right to be. None.
You state your name and spell for the record?
Taiwan Brooks.
Officer Taiwan Brooks was the only witness to testify during this 30-minute hearing. All of the evidence centers around this Ring doorbell footage from Mario Shaw's home.
Get up on the yard. That's Mr. Shaw, right? Correct. Pointing out toward the street. Now, who is this coming up here? That's me. That will be me.
Attorney John Pritchard, representing Mario Shaw, began by questioning Officer Brooks. For the first 9 minutes, Officer Brooks explained what...
In case you didn't see that, it's kind of blurred here by this camera, but that officer right there was punching this man in the back of his head. Again, another tactic, training that has no, there is no training for punching a man in the back of the head. Matter of fact, in your MMA fights, it is illegal. It is a disqualification to punch your opponent in the back of the head because it is dangerous. Very dangerous. So where do these tactics come in?
Led up to this violent arrest from his point of view.
He gave me several commands to identify himself, to put his hands behind his back. He refused to do so. He swung on me, he struck me, and then I fought him back.
He swung on him, and then he struck him back. No, that's not what the video shows. No, no, no. Go back and watch it again.
Struck him several times. My partner tased him.
In the video, you can hear Officer Brooks say, "Identify yourself." But you never hear him ask Shaw to put his hands behind his back. Officer Brooks also fails to mention that 3 seconds later, he ran to Shaw's porch and grabbed him.
Well, is this other stuff we saw here?
So where did the punch come in? There's no punch yet, okay? And this officer is going to accuse this man of trying to go back into the house. What's unlawful about trying to go back into your house? Again, when we talk about curtilage and the officer having no reason to be there other than to harass this man. Otherwise, he'd have come with a warrant and a criminal offense.
What you do as a police officer. If you fight me, I'm going to fight you back, then yes. At what point in this video are you trying to just simply handcuff him behind his back? When you saw from the video, I ran up to grab him. He resisted. He threw me to the ground. I got up. He threw who? Where? Did you look at the video? I watched it 40 times. I watched 41.
The video shows both.
You see that? As he was getting up, he swung. He's the one that first threw the punch, and he said that this man threw him to the ground when he's the one that grabbed the man, and they went to the ground because of him grabbing him. If he did not grab him, this man didn't leave his porch. The officer ran up to him and grabbed him. So this man didn't throw him to the ground. The officer threw him to the ground, and then on the way up, punched the man. And he converted both of those actions as if though this man initiated them.
Men try to stand up. Officer Brooks throws a punch. Shaw falls back down to his knees. Officer Brooks then punches Shaw in the back of the head at least 5 times. Then,
notice this officer has a gun out.
3 seconds later, he ran to Shaw's porch and grabbed him.
Well, this other stuff we saw here, what you do as a police officer. If you fight me, I'm gonna fight you back, then yes. At what point in this video are you trying to just simply handcuff him behind his back? When you saw from the video, I ran up to grab him. He resisted. He threw me to the ground. I got up.
See there, he pulls out his
Look at the
gun.
video. I watched it 40 times. I watched 41.
His gun's got a light on the
Both
front.
men try to stand up. Officer Brooks throws a punch. Shaw falls back.
And you can clearly see. And it may be the taser with a light on it, but it's a weapon that he pulled.
Down to his knees. Officer Brooks then punches Shaw in the back of the head at least 5 times. Then, his partner, Officer Kevin Shannon, runs up with his taser.
And you're
Yeah, it's his taser, they said.
attempting to detain him. Did you bite him? During the course of the fight, yes. You did it. Yes. It was police policy to use biting to detain someone. No, police policy is to tell you to stop and turn around, and then you resist. And punch the officer. You bite him.
Then, Judge Christian R. Johnson weighs in.
That does not look like a normal arrest, sir. That is not a conversation with an individual on the porch asking them to step down. That is a person running full speed and tackling another individual.
Officer Brooks answers the judge.
So the judge sees it. But again, I'm not going to give this judge too much credos because I'm sure he's seen many cases before him that he didn't say anything. He didn't speak up. You know?
He was trying to go back into the house.
The video shows him just standing there as you charged him and tackled him.
During the hearing, Officer Brooks said the entire interaction was not shown on this Ring doorbell footage, but the state did not submit the officer's body cam videos as evidence. The prosecutor did not cross-examine Officer Brooks, but said this.
Officer believed Mr. Shaw might have been armed. And then during that conversation, when he went to detain him for officer safety, he was struck and thrown on the ground.
Which contradicts the video that I just watched.
This was not an attempt to detain him. Attempt to beat the shit out of him. That's what it was.
Yeah, and the officer thought he might have been armed. An officer can think anybody might be armed. That is a lame excuse to bring in public or police safety. Very lame excuse. So my recommendation in this awesome nation with a Second Amendment is to arm yourself. That's not a call to violence. That's a call to support yourself under the Second Amendment that shall not be infringed.
And I'm asking about everything that dismissed against Mr. Shaw.
Now, Judge Christian Johnson dismissed all charges against Shaw. Shaw is suing the officers and Police Chief C.J. Davis for up to $300,000. The Memphis Police Department confirmed months ago that arrest was under review within the department. But because of this lawsuit, the department refused to answer more questions. ABC 24 obtained Officer Tywan Brooks' personnel file. In 2021, Officer Brooks was temporarily relieved of duty after he hit an ATV driver with his police cruiser during a chase. The personnel files describe his actions, quote, intentional and excessive. He was suspended without pay for 20 days. For now, MPD will not
20 days. 20 days. A suspension for 20 days, despite a previous record, a previous pattern of practice.
comment on the employment status of the officers in this case.
So a couple notes here. First and foremost, this attorney, I don't know him, but his name is John Pritchard. He did an incredible job with this cross-examination. One of the great things that you get from understanding how cops think is that you know as a lawyer how to talk to them in a way that makes them feel comfortable. You can build rapport.
This is where he's talking about their grammar. You learn how they speak so you can use the same grammar to provide a more comfortable atmosphere of conversation and communications.
With them and make them maybe more comfortable than they would be if they thought they should be on the defensive or that you were going to be on the attack. And you can do that with any witness, but specifically cops have a certain way that they speak, that they communicate, a certain sort of common parlance that you can use to communicate with them that makes it seem like you understand how they operate. And obviously that helps if you've been a cop before, but you can also sort of acquire that skill by just being around a long time and talking to a bunch of different cops. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm special, but there are very few of us in the world who have done both jobs. And, you know, I don't know whether Mr. Pritchard is former law enforcement or if the reason he's able to do this is because he's just been around so long, he understands how they think and operate. But what he did here is the same technique that detectives can use to make criminals confess. And the way that you do that is you sort of make them feel like you're basically the same as them. Like, I get it. I get how you feel, man. I probably would have done the same thing. And then once you've established that rapport with them, you can, get them basically to say things that would otherwise shock people because they feel like they're not alone. They're not the only person who feels that way. And so if you're a savvy lawyer, you can use that exact same technique on cross-examination and make them feel comfortable in saying the sort of quiet part out loud and admitting to things that are going to shock the audience and whoever's listening. And that's what he did.
And that's why I urge everybody to re-educate yourself. Learn English all over. You've been taught wrong. And if you don't go out and go beyond your bounds and do your own research, and this is something I tell people all the time, don't believe me, don't believe the neighbor, don't believe the government, and for crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. And this is imperative when it comes to trying to explain to your younger generations your realizations, your experiences. Otherwise, they're going to keep turning to books that keep telling them the same thing. The victor's story over the victims.
Was a brilliant cross. But how about the ego on Officer Tywan Brooks here? Just no big deal biting a guy, telling lies on the stand that were obviously contradicted by the same video that everybody in the courtroom watched, and then has the audacity to try to tell the judge, you don't get it. And the part where the attorney's like, well, I've probably watched it 40 times, and he goes, well, watch it 41. Just unbelievable how arrogant he is to just sort of dismiss the scrutiny that the judge is laying on him. Oh, this isn't the whole interaction. Trust me, judge, not your lying eyes. But kudos to the judge for dismissing it and seeing through the bullshit. And now Shaw's lawsuit can proceed forward without sort of the disability of the criminal charges hanging over his head. And lastly, shame on the Shelby County District Attorney's Office for even pursuing this case from the beginning. Anyone with a set of eyes and a pulse could see that this was nonsense. And what they should be doing is charging Officer Tywan Brooks for perjuring himself and lying to the judge on the stand. But at a minimum, they should have at least dismissed this case during the initial screening because there was no probable cause to make this case in the first place.
Absolutely. Because again, that's something else I've mentioned is these attorneys have a pre-investigation that they're supposed to go through. And that pre-investigation is determined if the officer really does have probable cause. And when you see body cam footage and security video footage from the man's home, you can clearly tell that the officer was lying the entire thing through and through. There was not one shred of truth in this officer for that incident. And I would say, again, because of patterns of practice, that is likely most of his cases is he lies through and through. When are you going to get this, folks? And for the moment, I'm going to take a break. I will be right back. Please enjoy. Let's see here. And I'll be right back. Thanks, folks.
Hold up, grab my soda, cause I told you I'm colder than hell. I ain't buying what you sell, it don't ring my bell. Unless it's got the smell, like grape pape. We ain't talking vapes or the color of drapes. Or a gorilla in a cape is the good shit. Just one hit, you so lit, you fall into a bit, non-bit. What's fucking funny is you're a monkey, a high school flunky, hero and junkie, obliteration of the carnation with gross castration, skewed citations by your intimation. Get real, young man, there's only one stand. You can't stand a suntan. How you gonna live on the land? Obliteration of the carnation with gross castration in skewed citations by your intimations. I'm a truth in rotation. You're a cheap imitation. Dark set hums, 808s make the ground shake. Cold as the grave, every word's a land quake. You're a flicker in the cipher, I'm the flame that won't fade. Step into the night where the shadows are made. What's fucking funny is you're a monkey, a high school flunky, hero and junkie. I'm gonna click another hit of this good shit, and I'm already it, so take over, it's been done, big.
Because they chose to pursue it, I'm really glad that John Pritchard made them and their arrogant thug of a witness look like absolute clowns. The next item on the docket is clarification on the Sandy Springs lieutenant leadership case in Georgia. Several of the commenters asked me why I didn't take the opportunity during the video to go through the legal merits of whether the police could, in fact, enter your apartment without a warrant under the circumstances of a shooting in the general vicinity. And I understand the question. It's a fair one, but the answer was there wasn't enough facts for me to make a determination. But I can say that
And I'm going to say that despite not having facts, the curtilage issue is still at hand. You have to have specific information that would provide the exigent circumstances in order to enter and surpass somebody's curtilage. And that would be like a visible view of a weapon being fired. Not just somebody having a weapon. That's the Second Amendment. They're allowed to do so. But to be firing it into the public would be a certain exigent circumstance that would allow them to surpass that curtilage. They didn't have anywhere near that. They had gunshots fired. They weren't around. It was a call in, and they went to an apartment complex and singled out an apartment that they had no witnesses for, no evidence whatsoever.
Think that it's doubtful that they would have had what they needed in order to enter the apartment without a warrant pursuant to some adjacent nature or proximity to a crime scene. The controlling case that governs this is a case called Mincy versus Arizona. Mincy was a United States Supreme Court case that was decided in 1978. And in that case, there was an undercover narcotics officer that entered Mincy's apartment during a drug bust, and gunfire erupted. The officer was shot and killed, and Mincy was shot and taken to the hospital. After the shooting, there were homicide detectives that conducted a 4-day search of Mincy's apartment without a warrant. What they did was they basically did exactly what happened here at Sandy Springs, except they were inside looking through drawers, photographing things, collecting evidence, and essentially turning the apartment into a crime lab. The state of Arizona took the position that there was a murder scene exception to the warrant requirement, and they argued that once a homicide occurs inside a residence, the gravity of the offense itself would justify a warrantless search for evidence. But the Supreme Court said, no, you're smoking dope yourself. There is no such exception that exists. Even though a homicide occurred and a cop was dead, it does not dispense with the Fourth Amendment protections for people.
So what we have is all kinds of idiots trying to make exceptions that aren't there. See, the exceptions have to be ruled by Congress. And these are federal laws. They have to be ruled by Congress. Okay? So when there are no exceptions and they try to create exceptions, that's the importance of us knowing these laws. If we turn to an attorney is on the side of the police, they're never going to disclose this. They're just going to say that there is an exception and that that's what they're following. No, you cannot just make up exceptions, folks.
Once an immediate emergency, like rendering aid or neutralizing a threat, ends, officers have to get a warrant before they can search and seize evidence. And so the key language of the holding was that the court said the seriousness of the offense under investigation does not itself create exigent circumstances. A warrantless search must be strictly circumscribed by the exigencies which justify its initiation. In other words, if you didn't have exigent circumstances to start the search in the first place, then you can't go searching through the house. So there is no murder scene exception. Exigent circumstance entry is limited to the immediate safety, aid, and prevention of evidence disruption, as it always has been. So in Mincy, unlike here, there was a confirmed active homicide scene inside the residence itself. Officers knew a violent felony had occurred in that apartment and that one of their own had been shot. They were already inside lawfully under a pre-existing exigency in order to aid victims and secure safety when they started the multi-day search that the court condemned. The holding wasn't that officers could never enter without a warrant. It was that once
the exigent circumstances were alleviated and there are no more exigent circumstances, you cannot then use the scene as a police scene. And in this case, there were no exigent circumstances even at the time that they went into this man's apartment. There were no exigent circumstances. So they had no lawful right to even enter the curtilage.
emergency ended, they couldn't treat the home as a standing crime scene for evidence gathering. Now, I realize that in this particular case, the lieutenant has laid out facts that make it look sort of like all they did was go in and check and make sure and then lock it back up. But importantly, there was no confirmed crime scene inside the apartment in Sandy Springs. And so what you need before you can go in and do this protective sweep is lawful presence. And in order to have lawful presence, you have to have an exception to the warrant requirement. You have to have something like exigency or hot pursuit or consent.
So in this case, the crime scene was the place where somebody called and said they heard gunshots and couldn't say where the gunshots came from. So there is no crime scene. There is a witness that heard something and can't tell you where it came from.
Assault giving rise to the circumstance occurred outside and nowhere close to this apartment. The supposed connection that lieutenant leadership is trying to make here to this residence unit came from some vague, ambiguous statement by somebody who might be a friend or a brother and had no direct connection. No blood, no screams, no gunfire, or signs of distress coming from that unit. In fact, the guy said he was inside and then left and had no idea any of this was going on. And so the thing that distinguishes this from Mincy is that in Mincy, exigency already existed briefly and then expired. Here, we have nothing to justify the exigency or any other exception to the warrant requirement. In order to legally justify a warrantless home entry, the officers needed specific articulable facts, creating an objectively reasonable belief that someone inside was seriously injured or in immediate danger. None of that existed here, because had they had any contact with anybody inside that apartment, they would have known that he was in there and didn't know anything was going on. Or they could have had hot pursuit, fresh pursuit. They'd need to be actively chasing the known suspect who had just entered that apartment, or somebody that they would have seen or relied upon told them that somebody entered that apartment. Or they.
And that's the point here, is there was a single gunshot. They responded to the gunshot. They couldn't possibly have gotten there in time to visually observe more gunshots because there were no more gunshots. Whereas if there were multiple gunshots and you had victims, then they could cordon off a crime scene, but it certainly probably wouldn't be the guy's apartment. It would be around the people that had been shot.
Could have seen it themselves. They weren't doing that. They didn't even know who the shooter was. In fact, they didn't even learn until later that there was no shooting of a person. A third thing that could have maybe justified it was if they had probable cause. If there was probable cause that the apartment itself was evidence of a crime and waiting for a warrant would risk destruction of evidence or danger to life, then maybe they could enter. But again, they had no probable cause. They had no connective tissue between the assault that they hadn't even classified yet as a shooting, or that they had improperly classified as a shooting that was just a regular assault, that connected that crime to this apartment. All they had was a hunch and speculation, and we know that that's not enough. Or they could have had consent, but they obviously didn't have that because they got the homeowner outside questioning what they were doing. Or if they were lawfully present in the first place, they.
And when he says hunch or speculation, I call that delusional insanity of trying to figure out ways they can best pad their paychecks by using as much of the funds as they can possibly use to make it look like they're actually fucking doing something when they're not.
Could have done a protective sweep. But of course, they always think they can do a protective sweep simply because they exist and they want to sweep. But that's not how protective sweeps work. Protective sweeps are attached to search incident to lawful arrest or lawful presence. They can't just be in the.
So again, that goes to a warrant. They have to specifically name the places and the things and persons they are searching for.
Abstract, I'm going to go do a protective sweep because I think that it would be safer. That's not how they work. They were outside. They can't bootstrap a sweep into a lawful entry. And that's what they were trying to do. And then they basically were trying to browbeat him into accepting their unreasonable explanation for it. So based on what I know about this case, they had absolutely zero justification for doing what they did. But of course, you can't tell them that because they won't even listen to you ask questions without acting like dickheads like they did with this guy. So in order for them to have actually justified.
I like how he uses that. I like how he says that. You can tell this guy in his heart knows that they're all dickheads. He straight up calls them acting like a dickhead. I agree.
The entry of this home for it to be defensible under the emergency aid exception or exigency or anything like that. They need at least a reliable witness, not a vague acquaintance, but specifically someone stating that they observed a suspect or a wounded person run into that apartment, someone who was reliable and credible. Or they would have needed some sort of audible or visible indicators of distress, like somebody saying, help me, or shouting, or a blood trail, or movement through the blinds. They would need something immediately articulable that would basically have created an objectively reasonable concern that something was happening so quickly that they didn't have time to get a warrant because it would endanger life or endanger the integrity of evidence. And then they would be able to create the bridge between that hunch that they had and then this short, limited sweep to make sure that there were no active threats or victims, and then they would have to lock it back up and do what they, according to the lieutenant, did after the fact. But lieutenant leadership here missed what the legal definition of exigency is, because the only definition he knows is because I said so. And that's why we have the problems we have with policing in America. But that's the reason I didn't go into a lot of detail on the legal stuff, because I put my email address up on the screen.
Yeah, because I said so. We hear that often enough that we should understand that what they're doing is they're using their own definitions and not clarifying that definition because I said so. That's their definition, because I said so. Despite any laws on the books that say otherwise, because I said so. This is the epitome of their ego and the thought that they have ultimate power and authority over you, regardless.
And asked for the person in the video to reach out to me or somebody that knew him. And I thought maybe I'll do an update later when I get more facts, because I didn't feel like the proper analysis. But come to think of it, maybe if leadership should have taken my lead and waited for more information before they decided to bypass the Constitution, we wouldn't be here. And we wouldn't have to lean on Lieutenant Leadership's explanation of because I said so. But it remains to be seen whether this person will reach out to me or whether I'll get some more information. If I do, I'll do a full update. The third and final item of the week, now would be the time to fast forward through this segment, because I'm going to give props to a chief of police from Colorado.
And this is a rare incident, and I don't want to underplay it or overplay it, but I do want to show the realization that understand how systemic this is, and that my firm belief is that this officer, police chief, threw one of his officers under the bus, because otherwise he'd be thrown under the bus. In certain situations, the upper authorities will say, hey, you better take care of this or we're going to throw you under the bus with him. So I don't want to overplay it or underplay it. I want to state the realization of what I observe, and that is that I don't think this officer is a good cop either. Just because he did something good doesn't mean he's a good cop. There are patterns of practice we can clearly see, and I'm sure there are many officers he didn't throw under the bus because he went ahead and investigated and found him not guilty.
Cop of the week goes to Chief of Police David Jackson from the Englewood, Colorado Police Department. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this case for the purposes of awarding Good Cop of the Week, because I intend to do a full video on it later in the week. But here is the sort of quick and dirty of what happened and why he's Southern Draw Law's Good Cop of the Week. One of the officers from Englewood, Ryan Vecina, stopped the guy for running a stop sign. Vecina almost immediately escalated the encounter, tased the driver who was being, questioning him, but he was being compliant. He was just sitting in the driver's seat of the vehicle. He tased him, and then in the process of arresting the driver, Vecina used a chokehold on him, what the chief referred to as a neck encirclement, which is essentially a choke that is expressly prohibited by Colorado law.
Expressly prohibited by many state laws. Again, these are not training tactics that they're supposed to be using. So if they are being trained to punch you in the back of the head, choke you, things like that, I would have to say we have a very, very delusional populace when it comes to that. As it remains, the police are asserting things that you should know better yourself are not right, and you're allowing it to happen. So again, it's not just the police. It's not just the public officials. I am saying you people as bitch-ass slaves, the ones still carrying those IDs in your wallet and saying that you vote because you think you need a boss to tell you what you can and can't do because you don't know how to do that yourself. That's what the system literally poses. And if you think otherwise, then go ahead and keep back in the blue until it happens to you.
And as such, it is not in line with policy and training. Now, here's where the chief really impressed me. In a world where cops cover for each other left and right, law enforcement leadership routinely doubles down on stupidity, and seemingly no one ever gets held accountable. And if they do, it takes forever and a day. From October 8th, when this happened, until November 4th, when the chief gave the press conference, the chief had reviewed the initial complaint, fired the police officer. The district attorney had been made aware of it, had dismissed the charges against the driver, and had charged this officer with multiple crimes, all in a span of less than a month.
I have a few remarks and then.
And again, with body cams and stuff, my question here is the prosecutor that went ahead and took those charges, despite the fact that he's supposed to do a pre-investigation to determine if the charges are valid, and he went ahead and took those charges. That's my question.
Happy to take questions.
It should have never reached the chief of police. The prosecuting attorney said it should have hit the prosecuting attorney's desk, and the prosecuting attorney should have done something.
When we were made aware of this incident and reviewed the body camera footage, the case was immediately referred to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation that same day. The internal affairs detective who viewed the video found it concerning and immediately alerted command staff, which shows that we have a strong culture of accountability in reporting misconduct.
No. Which proves we have a strong accountability and reporting process. No, No, if you had a strong accountability and reporting process, this would have happened many times in the past, and it doesn't. It doesn't happen near as many times as it should, and this is blatantly obvious in the modern day, where we see it repeatedly, where we find an officer that wasn't disciplined prior on multiple incidents before this one. So no, it's not accountability in reporting process. You're afraid of getting thrown under the bus yourself. So now you're stepping up and posing that this proves that you have accountability in reporting process that's accurate. It's not. Quit fucking lying.
Internal affairs investigation, an internal affairs detective was reassigned from all other duties to solely focus on this matter. The officer was placed on administrative leave and never worked another shift for the Inglewood Police Department.
An internal affairs officer was removed from all other duties and assigned solely on this case to make that determination. I think a fifth grader can make a determination as to whether an officer did something that was according to human nature or if he violated the law. I think that's simple. And I think it's a matter of just waking up and taking them blinders off, folks. You're fucking adults.
He is no longer a city employee. The officer was employed by the Inglewood Police Department from November of 2024 until October of 2025. The Inglewood Police Department has fully cooperated and collaborated with the CBI and the District Attorney's Office throughout this investigation to an unbiased third-party law enforcement agency because transparency and fairness are critical. The Inglewood Police Department will continue to support the criminal process and provide any assistance requested by the CBI or the District Attorney. We are implementing adjustments to our scheduling system to ensure closer supervision, and greater accountability.
Accountability and closer supervision, which is a contradiction to the statement he just made about having an accountable reporting process. So he's admitting that there definitely need to be improvements across the board. So he just contradicted exactly what I explained when the statement he made earlier about proving that they had an accountable reporting process.
Additional training will also be provided to reinforce expectations around de-escalation, communication, and lawful use of force. After the murder of George Floyd in 2020, the city of Inglewood undertook one of the first police reform initiatives in the state, with a resident task force recommending 34 accountability measures.
Residential task force with 34 accountable measures. See, I remember a thing in my day, my younger days, called Neighborhood Watch Program. I remember block parties where the neighbors all knew each other and they got together and they protected each other, even against the police. In the last 3 decades, it's gotten worse 10-fold, 20-fold, 50-fold in some places. This is ridiculous, people. Fucking wake up.
Focusing on improving community interactions and de-escalation. This type of conduct is a stain on the profession and is not reflective of the Inglewood Police Department or the people who serve our community with honor. Our community expects professionalism and compassion with those who wear our badge, and that expectation will not change.
Now, that, ladies and gentlemen,
No, it has changed. It has been changing over the decades. And you have no trust from the people anymore. You're losing that trust. They no longer respect you. Don't sit there and keep lying to the people saying that remains, when that only remains amongst your private group. You can't speak for the public at large. If you did, you would know that trust is no longer there, that people do not respect that badge because of its ill use.
I'll admit leadership that we should be able to expect as a bare minimum, but it's never seen in law enforcement agencies. Your people learn what they can get away with by watching how you react to what they do. And I hope that the men and women of Inglewood, Colorado know that they can't do this kind of stuff without consequences. Also, kudos to the district attorney for Arapahoe County for charging this officer. He was still on probation, so that made it really easy for the chief to just cut ties with him and move the police department forward without having to worry about him. So really,
but that still remains to say, he's just going to move to another place and become another officer doing the same thing again. Where is the actual remedy besides and beyond just dissing them? This is the true problem. Again, the actual accountability.
Great job all around. As I mentioned, I'll be doing a more long-form review of this case later with the body cam as well as the legal analysis and a couple points about how Englewood, Colorado might make for a good case study moving forward because of some of the things they've chosen to do in the way of reforming their department in conjunction with civilian oversight groups. Anyway, that's the rebuttal for the week. Hopefully you guys got something out.
So yeah, hopefully you guys got something out of that, and it helps open your eyes and ears so that you can start using that First Amendment of freedom of speech and freedom of expression to let your voice be heard. And I'm not saying that you need to go to city councils. I'm saying that might be effective. But the most effective means of using that voice, I believe, is taking back that language barrier and learning how to speak to your younger generations and educate them. These people in the public capacity as public servants are beyond re-education. Most of them. I can't generalize it like that. Most of them are beyond education. Most of them you see behind the counters are in their 40s, 50s, 60s. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. You have to be willing to learn tricks all your life so that even when you're old, you're still learning new tricks. And that's something that most people have been conditioned against because of that saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I guarantee you with the new technology coming out, I've been trying to stay up the best I can with a lot of it. And I'm learning it just like any other younger generation might learn it. You have the same capabilities of learning. And if you put that up and think that that's the end of the day, then that's on you. That's when you start dying. And that's what I see in these people. They're literally dying while professing that they're living the life. Got all these cars, nice cars, a big family, all kinds of people that love them. That's nepotism and cronyism in a private club that you ain't in. You're going to learn how to stand on your own in truth, regardless of any laws or anything written down or anything said or proposed by anybody else. When are you going to know it in your heart that you are doing what is right and just? Until then, believing isn't good enough. You're going to believe that back in the blue is a good thing to do until it happens to you. Meantime, I'm going to keep showing you the errors of those ways. So one last one on the way out. I hope you guys appreciate it. Thanks for joining me today. I love y'all, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's not for me to do. That's you. You have to discern that.
I am accounted for, my name's been read, written in the ledger where the lamb was led. Did not the body, did not the blood, pay every debt in the flood of love? So tell me now, what's left to owe? When mercy calls, I can't say no. Are we too old? No man anything. Just grace erase what the law might bring. If love's a yard, then love fulfills all that binds all their wills. Silver spend, the temples fall, but the heart still whispers through it all. Render to God what is divine, and what remains is only mine. So tell me now, what's mine to keep when every truth cuts dark and deep? Are we all knowing anything? Does the blood absolve the suffering? If love's the law, then I am Rome and anything. Did not the Christ pay everything? The law fulfilled, the veil torn through.